Ladies and gentlemen, happy Wednesday night. Welcome to Deep in the Plus. I'm your host, Rob Whiteside. Thank you guys, as always, for being with us. We really appreciate you. Business out of the way. Please subscribe to WDWNT TV for this and more great content. And also, please give us a thumbs up as it helps people to find us. And tonight, we're going to be talking about Star Wars. And to get the Star Wars crew together here, starting with Mr. Nicholas Cicero.
Yeah,
It's beautiful.
Tano.
This is your Super Bowl, isn't it, Nick? This is the one. Like, forget the Brady years. This is it tonight, right?
This was a long time coming for me. I'm excited.
Okay, all right. And Desi
Bright Suns.
and Ron Deanna. How are you, Ron?
Aloha.
So tonight, we're going to talk about what was it, Rebels Season 5. That's what we're here to talk about, is Rebels Season 5. For those of you who don't know, there was a little TV show that dropped, and it's called Ahsoka, and it is about Ahsoka Tano. But is it really? It feels like it's kind of about Star Wars Rebels. And the funny thing is that I don't think I've ever felt more like I needed to prepare for a TV show, Nick, than this one, because I felt like, okay, I got to watch Rebels. Do I have to watch Clone Wars? Do I have to, play Jedi Fallen Order? There's so much going on in this one. The Rebel tie-in. Do you feel like you have to see Rebels to know what's going on in this show?
I think you have to see Rebels to truly appreciate what happened in this show, but not to enjoy it. I knew a couple people who really loved this show without watching Rebels, and I think they liked it for the characters, for the action, for the story. I have my quibbles, and we'll go over that tonight. But I mean, this was a really good Star Wars show. And I think there's a lot of nuance there that you needed to have to watch. You needed to watch Rebels. Like, I had people asking me about Anakin Skywalker and like, oh, we had an apprentice. Yeah, he had an apprentice. Clone Wars, Rebels are not required viewing, but if you watch all that, each one enhances the previous thing that came out. I give everybody else a chance, but I'd love to talk more about that in this show, because I really believe that.
Well, and that's the question I have, is that I've seen Rebels. If I hadn't seen Rebels, would I have appreciated it as much? And Desi, I don't know, did you watch all of Rebels or did you not?
I haven't seen Rebels. I did watch Clone Wars, though, so I did already know that she was Anakin's apprentice. I knew that she left the Jedi Order. I knew all of that. So I hadn't watched Rebels. I don't really know Sabine or Hera or Ezra. But I did do some homework, and I watched, some recaps about Rebels to get a general idea before going in.
So you watched those before you watched Ahsoka, right? Those
Right.
Recaps. Yeah, I did see a bunch of YouTube videos. Everything you need to know before you watch Ahsoka. So, and again, like, I feel like there's so much that happens, and I know Neko is in chat and talked about Jedi Fallen Order. You got Jedi Fallen Order and like Tales of the Jedi. I don't know, how much of it did you consume, Ron, before you went into this?
I've seen all of Clone Wars, all of Rebels. I watched Clone Wars kind of retroactively. I tried to watch it when the movie came out, that first 3 episode that they packaged for theaters, and that was pretty awful. And it started Ahsoka on a really bad foot. I think she was an annoying character at the beginning, but I think that was designed to grow with her. And I think following her through Clone Wars and Rebels and into this, you really see her maturing, and that's part of it. Is you wouldn't get all of those nuances and why she is kind of this gray Jedi, but still on the light side feel of things without those. I think those are really key to understanding how she reacts to things here.
Yeah, there's a lot of Jedi who aren't Jedi in this one. So Neko told me to go and check out this meme that she dropped in here. This is the Ahsoka show, and Dave Filoni's sneaking in Rebels Season 5. I've said this before about Dave Filoni, that I feel like this live-action Disney Plus is his sandbox. He's like, here's all these characters that I created in animation that I finally get to bring into the Star Wars universe, into live action. And it's got to be like just an insane joy for him to be able to bring in, whether it's Ahsoka or Cad Bane or whoever, into this universe, right? So I think that's pretty exciting. But the way I want to walk through this is, like I said, the stuff that came before it, kind of like which led up to this, and then move on to talk about what happened, and then finally kind of what we think is going to happen next. Rebels aside, Nick, back to you, and I'll keep it open for everybody here, but the stuff that we learned about Ahsoka in Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett, do you think that was key to watching this?
Yeah, because we had to know where Ahsoka was, what Ahsoka evolved to. I think, Ahsoka, I think part of the reason why I love her so much is we spent so much time with that character. Like, we have spent more time with Ahsoka than a lot of original trilogy characters. It may be the one that I haven't counted. I haven't seen any kind of calculations on this, but we may have spent more time with Ahsoka throughout her history than anybody else. I love that. Ahsoka, if you follow Ahsoka and the things happening around Ahsoka, you can piece together the entire Star Wars history from, the prequels right to the sequel trilogy. So I agree with Ron. Ahsoka did not start out as a likable character. She grew on you, and as you watched it, I think Clone Wars enhanced the prequels. I think Rebels enhanced Clone Wars. I think the Ahsoka series enhanced Rebels. I think it all works together. So I think you get a better appreciation if you watch everything. And I think seeing Ahsoka grow through all these different stages is just phenomenal. And I'll touch on that Filoni comment you made, because I think Filoni is the closest connection to George Lucas we have. He worked hand in hand under George Lucas. He created these characters with George Lucas. And George Lucas wasn't like the best at everything when it came to filmmaking. Like, he wasn't, I don't know, how many people would consider him the best director, the best writer, and I think Filoni's along those same lines. I think Filoni's a good storyteller. I think Filoni understands where these characters should go. And I think if he surrounds himself with great people like Favreau and all these other directors that he has come along that help him out, I think we're going to see great things out of Filoni and Star Wars to come.
Yeah, I actually, the comment I was interested in you defending was when Ron was basically bad-mouthing your bae when he was talking about Ahsoka.
No,
I thought there was going to be a fight.
No, I didn't like her after the Clone Wars movie that came out. I mean, like, that was awful. I didn't even watch Clone Wars until like season 2 or 3 when I was like, oh, I should try to catch up on this. And I got like the DVDs or whatever, started binging it, and I was like, oh, this is really good, and this fleshes out everything, and this improves. And look, we could debate this, and this probably isn't the place to debate this, but I think the Clone Wars completely improved what was going on in the prequels, and it made Anakin Skywalker a much better character. And then to see him come to life, and I know we'll get there, but to see him come to life in the Ahsoka series blew my mind. It was amazing.
See, I always thought that, like, all I need are the movies. All I need are, the theater movies, and that's it. And, Clone Wars, it's like, I didn't get into that until later. But if you look at what they consider to be canon now, and this is pre-Ahsoka, it's like, good Lord. Like, if you were just coming into Star Wars and you handed this to somebody, that person would just go, nope, thank you, bye-bye. I thought this was just Luke and Leia. What are we doing here? There's
Are
so
the young
much.
Jedi not canon? I didn't see them.
No, they're not. I know your kids are going to be just desperately sad about that. But going back to this though, the way they release these shows though, it's got to be confusing. If you're a Disney Plus fan and you're like, okay, well they released Ben Kenobi or Obi-Wan Kenobi and they released Mandalorian, they must go side by side. Nope, look how separated those shows are from each other. And then they're like, okay, then here comes Book of Boba Fett. Well, no, that matches with Mandalorian, but then here's Andor, and it's like, no, that's way before. And it's just like trying to explain it to somebody who is, and I think I've talked about this before when we did Andor, trying to explain to somebody like the timeline of this when they're not releasing them in timeline order, that's bonkers. And yet I'm here for it. But I wonder about new Star Wars fans. And again, Desi, talk about that. Like, do your kids get into this, or I mean,
my kids will take anything with a lightsaber. I don't think that they're really quite old enough to understand the nuances and what's going on, but they see pew pew and zoom zoom. That's all they care about. They love it. I mean, Young Jedi is their favorite show. So yeah, I don't think that for them that they care about it being in chronological. Star Wars has never been in chronological order. It started with Episode 4, so I don't see any problem with it. I did have a boyfriend where when we watched the movies, we watched them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 because he had never seen Star Wars before, and it was kind of an experiment for me.
And that's why you didn't marry him.
He's not long. Yeah, exactly.
And you're trying to figure out and scratch your head why this isn't canon. Is that what you were saying? You're trying to figure out why? Oh yeah, that's a shame. Yeah, exactly. But again, it's kind of all over the place. Now, the thing where I definitely dropped the ball were books, because reading is fundamental, but not. I could watch 18 movies in the time it would take me to read one book, so give me the movies. And then the video games, and I've played the video games like Shadows of the Empire and some of that stuff that's not, that extended, universe is, when Disney kind of like wiped the slate clean and said, okay, this is canon, this is not canon. There was a lot of that stuff that was just out there. But Ron, then they go, you know what? We put Thrawn on the wrong side. Let us bring him back over here to like, and make him canon. That's to me was very exciting.
Yeah, I was very excited when the Thrawn books came out and he showed up in Rebels. I mean, I remember I was 11, 12 when Heir to the Empire came out, and, was grabbing them, reading them as they're coming out, and he was such an amazing character. I think he's still a good character. I'm not sure he's the same character totally he was, but seeing him brought to life first in animation and now in this was really exciting for someone who was, at least for the better part of the 90s, a big Legends fan, Legends reader.
It's overwhelming, actually, which is why I was showing that map. But let's talk about how they went from animation to the live action here, because it's interesting that some of the characters they recast and some of the characters they brought in as the voice, Thrawn included, right? So that's one of those where I'm like, okay, if you're Lars, you're like, yep, I got the gig, because no one can do the voice like I can. Like when he comes in, I'm like, shudder. Like, I mean, that voice from Rebels like has me the whole way. But like, Hayden Christensen comes back from the regular movies, and then you've got like the new characters, but like Mary Elizabeth Winstead, like why couldn't we have brought Vanessa Marshall, is that her name? Why couldn't we brought her in to do this, Nick? Like, and specifically for you, how do you feel about like Ashley not being Ahsoka?
I'm okay with that. I don't know how good of an Ahsoka in the live action she would be. She's an amazing voice actress, and she's an amazing ambassador for Star Wars. She's an amazing person. And so, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a producer. I'm not a cast director. I don't know what would happen if they screen tested her. Contrary to popular belief, no. No, but like, I have no idea what that would have looked like. What I do know is that Rosario Dawson fit that role. Like, like the grown up Ahsoka, the one that we kind of left off on Rebels and the epilogues or whatever, that was I could see that evolution to Ahsoka, and so she fit. She seemed natural. It seemed good. If we're gonna quibble about anything, I'd say maybe her lightsaber skills and moving around, not the greatest thing in the world. I have to have my nitpicks here. But I think she did an amazing job. I really, at first I was like, I think everybody was like, okay, so she's just sitting there with her arms crossed all the time and looking like, but honestly, like this is many years in the future. Like there's
Right.
a whole story in between actually when we left her in animation and now, and I'm okay with that. I was a little afraid they were gonna take the Luke Skywalker approach, which I wasn't a big fan of in The Last Jedi. And I think they overcame that well. She had an arc. She went through it. She came out the other side. She was amazing. And there was a story to tell there. I think the story happened a little more slowly than I thought. I think, and I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but I think the episode kind of dragged out a little bit, and we didn't complete stories. And why not? Because time's of the essence. Let's tell the stories. But I think she had an arc, and I loved the way she did. I loved Thrawn. Ezra blew me away. I was so impressed with the Ezra actor. I thought he nailed it. I loved it. Especially, I was actually just before we went on here, I was rewatching episode 8, and I was so impressed with his scene in building the lightsaber with Hu Yang. I thought that was he was so good, and I think he's so great with the lightsaber. I love his skills. I love it. Hera loved. Sabine, perfect, nailed it. I mean, I think they did perfect with the casting for these characters. I have no quibbles, honestly.
Interesting. I thought at first that the Ezra, when he was in his outfit in the hologram, I was like, it's not quite doing it for me. And then he did the thing where he's like, I don't know, and like reaching his head, like hand behind his neck, and I was like, okay, they got the mannerisms down. That's kind of cool. But I have a hot take for you, and I think that that Ivana, and I forget, is she Shin? Is that the character that she plays? Yeah.
The actual actress name? I'm sorry.
No, yeah, Ivana. I mean, but Shin is the character's name. Yeah, but Ivana is her actress name. Actress name, real name.
Yeah.
I think she would have made a better Sabine. Honestly,
really?
Like, I looked at her.
I never thought about that.
There's something about her that I felt like was more engaging. And I think she would have made a better Sabine. And as I was seeing her in her role, I was just like, oh, man, I feel like they should have switched those two maybe a little bit. But that was just my take.
Balin's still the show, though, right? So, like,
sadly.
Balin, I mean, we need more
100%.
Balin. And we're,
we have
sad.
questions there that we're gonna have to ask, but but Ron, for you, any of the characters, like, were you good with the casting on this one?
No, I thought everybody was great. I think everybody really took to what she was looking for, or where they were from Rebels, and kind of matured them up a little bit. I thought everybody looked great. It's hard to, pick somebody from animation and find someone who looks real. It's always been a problem. I just was really surprised. There was a little tiny photo of him, but I was really surprised we didn't get like a hologram of Freddie Prinze Jr. because I was totally expecting that to actually happen.
I mean, would he have been Kanan? Like, would they have used Freddie Prinze Jr. as Kanan?
I think he looks enough the part.
Yeah. And Desi, were you completely lost, or you were like, yes, they're perfect?
Having not known who the characters really were, but I knew Ahsoka.
Sure.
Maybe just because I didn't watch Rebels, I my idea of Ahsoka in my head is a lot sassier, and Rosario Dawson did not play sassy at all. And the other characters, I would say I liked Ezra. I loved Thrawn. I loved Balin. I liked Sabine. But I think the one that my husband and I were like, was Hera. But like, I don't know the character. It was just, she didn't seem like she was really believable as a general. I was like, I don't know. She didn't seem like she was like, yeah, I'm going to go lead an army. She seemed, I don't know, just sullen the whole time.
Sullen. Well, I mean,
we kind of potentially lose that as we get older. She was disenfranchised from the Jedi and things like that. A lot of stuff happened. A lot of life happened. So I'm able to forgive that. The one character that was obviously missing for some stupid reason, because they showed him in...
We had Zeb. I think you may have mentioned this. We had Zeb in Mandalorian Season 3, so why wouldn't you put him in here? Like, you have the whole gang back together except for Zeb. Like,
and it costs money.
But do they even refer to where he is?
They say he's been training, right? I think in the update, like, he's training recruits or something, I think was what Sabine told Ezra.
Maybe, yeah.
I think they do mention him by name once.
You mentioned Hugh Yang, David Tennant. Good Lord, he's the best. And the fact that they could do that one easily, right? Because he didn't have to look any different. It was either like a drawing or a CGI model. It doesn't really matter which way it is. I think he was amazing. Love to see him in there. And I think that was a neat ad. And then we had some guest stars, because we had Mon Mothma, which they considered a guest star, I guess. But Genevieve O'Reilly, like, who played Mon Mothma in everything basically except for the original movie, has done an amazing job in there. So I love the consistency there, because a lot of times when you go back on a TV show, DC is the worst at this, where the live action and the animation and the movies are all different actors. And it's just like, can we have some consistency here at least? And the fact that they have that consistency with Mon Mothma, with Hugh Yang, I thought it was great.
I do think they should have aged up Genevieve a little bit more. She looked too young to be post original trilogy Mon Mothma.
Yeah.
She looked the same as she did in Andor, right?
Yeah.
Like, she really did. Yeah.
9 years isn't that much.
But still the most stylish woman in the galaxy.
Yeah. Well, and I thought it was a classy move to refer to General Organa and not actually have her, what is it?
Yeah.
No, senator in this. She's a senator, and not actually have like a hologram or like her voice or anything. I thought that was pretty neat. But Anthony Daniels as like C-3PO.
Yeah, who else jumped out of their chair screaming when C-3PO came on screen, right? Oh my goodness. You're doing this.
A lot of this show, and we've talked about Dave Filoni being one of the biggest fans, a lot of this show was fan service, but in the good way. Like, I feel like sometimes, like with Phantom Menace, when they made it, they went, what did people like about the original? Lightsabers? Let's, like, triple down on the lightsabers. In this one, it felt like it was fan service, like I said, in the best of ways, and incorporating Jedi Fallen Order, and incorporating the books, and incorporating Rebels, and all of those things into it. But then again, that made me feel like I had to watch everything and consume everything. And I thought, I haven't seen Tales of the Jedi. Am I going to be screwed here? So I could have missed something. I don't know, but I didn't see that. But yeah, but the only thing that bothered me, Nick, is he what? I missed what?
You missed all the references to Young Jedi Adventures too.
Oh man! Oh shoot! Anthony Daniels, I assume this is an age thing. He was leaning far back, and I was like, you know what I'm saying? Like when he was standing there, like a little further back than C-3PO is normally leaning. I don't know.
Oh.
Which maybe it's, I don't know. But yeah, I was the same way. I was like, yeah, and then in my mind I'm going again back to that whole like that whole drawing, and I'm going, wait a minute. C-3PO just walked in. Does that track? Let's see. Yep. Okay. All right. Yep. That tracks. He can be there.
He doesn't
because
have his
again,
He could
red
be
arm
any.
yet.
yeah, he could be anywhere.
anywhere there. Yeah.
Yep. So, Ron, when you finally got to watch this show, let's get into the show itself. When you finally got to watch this show and the first episode happened, did you love the first episode, or were you like, okay, this is groundwork and I'll get into it within the next couple episodes?
It was just exciting to see these characters live, but I think every one of these shows, straight from the very beginning, has been groundwork in these episodes. I think it's the Marvel shows, Star Wars shows, Willow. They're written as a movie and just broken into parts. So it really is always like the first part of an act one. And I think it both works and it's a little tough. It's why they release 2 episodes at a time every time they kick off a series, because they write it as like, okay, here's the origins of the story. We're not going to give you any plot development too much. It's just where we are. So there we go. It just has to come from that. So it really has been, I think, almost every show on the channel.
Yeah, no, you're right. Like Andor took me a while to get in. Even Boba Fett, and I freaking love me some Boba Fett. The first episode of the Boba Fett with the back to tank like flashbacks, I was like, oh, come on, really? Yeah, but again, once they take off flying. Desi, did you have high expectations of this one again, like going into it, and did it meet them as you were watching the show?
I don't think I had high expectations because I hadn't seen Rebels. And I feel like it's mandatory to just watch everything Star Wars on Disney Plus. So I don't know if I had expectations. So maybe actually my expectations were low because I thought, oh, well, if I haven't seen Rebels, I'm not going to understand anything that's going on. But I would say probably exceeded expectations because even though I hadn't seen Rebels, I at least had enough of an awareness to know what was going on.
Gotcha. Nick, when we first open up, it's like the whole bit with the witches, which is weird for me because like this isn't a thing that I've been into along the way. I think that's more of a Jedi Fallen Order thing, isn't it? Maybe the Dothmar, Dothmir.
They go back to the Legends novels.
Okay.
Well,
okay.
yeah, technically, yeah.
But I mean, there's a lot of stuff in Star Wars. It was just like these are guys like fighting in space in a galaxy far, far away, and now we have time travel and like with Rebels where he's pulling people out of time, and now we have magic. It's almost it's turning into Riverdale out here. I'm just kidding. It's not. I will always love it no matter what. But when she first comes in and we first meet Ahsoka and she does the double saber thing and falls down into the temple, and it almost felt like a Raiders of the Lost Ark thing with her going in for that map. Were you beside yourself?
Well, I was. All right. So going into the first episode, I was so nervous. I don't know if I even fully enjoyed the first episode. The first watch, like, because I don't know. People don't know. I mean, like, I have a bunch of Ahsoka stuff over there, like sitting in the corner that's been there since the show started. Like, I have everything Ahsoka. Ahsoka is, I will say, my favorite Star Wars character. She is. My dog is named Ahsoka. I love Ahsoka so much. She grew on me so much. Like I love every aspect of her. I love her character. I love how she enhances Anakin. That is one of the biggest things I think I love about her. She enhances Anakin Skywalker as a character and raises him to another level. And I honestly believe you can't appreciate Anakin to the fullest degree unless you watch Clone Wars. And that has a lot to do with Matt Latner voicing him too. I think he lends great character to that. We spend more time with him than we do with Hayden, again, because it's a TV show. So I had high expectations for this show and this character. There's a lot riding on it. And so I don't know if I fully appreciated the first episode, but I loved it. I went back and rewatched everything, and I loved it even more. And then I could sit back and appreciate the Star Warsness of it, and the I have I have plenty of issues with it, and we could go over that whenever we want to. But at its core, this was a fun series, great series, and they did Ahsoka right, and they gave her a nice arc, and they gave characters around her nice stories to play with, and she wasn't the focus, right? Like you joked that it was Rebels season 5, and it really was. They could have named this Star Wars Rebels. They could have named this something else. They didn't have to name this Ahsoka. And if you asked anybody who's the main character out of this 8-episode series, they might pick Sabine, right? Sabine. Like they maybe, maybe Thrawn. I don't know, but he doesn't show up till episode 4. So it wasn't the main character here, but they did her well, and I appreciate what they did with it. I had a lot of anxiety going into this but I knew Dave Filoni, this is his character, right? So he's not going to do anything wrong with her. To also give you an idea, I'm the kind of fan who goes along with the person who's making the content, right? Like, that's their story. I don't have a say in the story. I'm just partaking in it on the other side, right? And so
you loved it when Palpatine returned?
Well, that's not the creator.
I didn't love it, but that's the story being told. That's the story being told to me, right? Like, so it's not there's a weird line there, right? Like, I'm not mad at them. That's the story they told. I could take it or leave it, right? Like, and that's kind of the attitude I have, because if we have this attitude, like, oh, they did this wrong, or we're not going to get anywhere. We're always going to have different opinions about this or anything, any piece of art, any piece of entertainment. So you got to kind of sit back and hope for the best. And that's why I think I didn't enjoy my first watch of any of these episodes, but I loved it on the second watch, because I was able to relax and be like, okay, everything went okay. I'm okay. Let's rewatch it. And that's where I was with this series. Yeah.
The difference with accepting where the story goes is, I think the difference between this and the sequels is Filoni has his story kind of at least somewhat plotted out where he wants to go. We know the sequel trilogy was not plotted out ahead of time. It was just kind of, okay, here's the first movie. We're going to do something different here. And then, people don't like that, so we're going to completely backtrack to something different. That's what happened with the sequels. I think Filoni and Abrams are both kids getting to play with their childhood toys. Except, I think I've said this before on the show, is Filoni is making up new stories with his figures. Abrams like to reenact the movie in a different way.
Yeah. So Nick, what you're basically saying is Chef knows best. Is that what you're saying? Like, every time I leave something off a hamburger, my son will yell at me and go, "Chef knows best." Like, that's supposed to be on there. That's supposed to be the way you get it. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm going to enjoy it more if I get that off. But you're like, Chef knows best. Want to know.
You go to Victoria and Albert's at Disney World, right? Like, you don't get any say over that. The chef, of course, makes the course and makes the menu, right? Like,
yep.
So when we're enjoying things like this, when we're enjoying this kind of art, yeah, I sit back and take in what they're giving me, and then I either take it or leave it. Like, I don't like, and I'll have my opinions doing tonight, but I don't like to go too far with that. Like, right, that's what they made. Okay, life goes on.
All right, so Desi, as a identifying as a Reylo, one of the things that hit me as we're watching this with Ahsoka is Ezra is Luke in Force Awakens. He's somewhere. The whole story is about getting to him and finding him, and we need the map to get to him. And I'm like, okay, like let's just throw a Starkiller base in here and we're good. But like, so but then there was also Thrawn, so that's kind of the same thing. We're leading up to both of them because they're both gone. But did that ever cross your mind, or the whole time were you just like, no, let me just get
No.
into what's going on?
No, it didn't. But now that you say that, also Sabine tried to give him his lightsaber, and he said no.
Yep.
Um, no, my biggest issue, I think, is okay. At least with the Last Jedi, when Rey shows up and finds Luke, and he's not into it and doesn't give her a warm welcome. He doesn't know her. Sabine and Ezra are supposed to be so close. Some people say that they're like brother and sister. Some people ship them. I don't know. I haven't seen Rebels, but I've heard that there's like a secret love connection there. And she shows up and he's just like, hey, cool. Thanks for finding me. No hug. No like, oh my God, I'm so glad. You have no idea what I went through to get here. It was just like, hey, what's up? That
or
was
what I
my
put the
biggest
rest of the
issue.
universe through to get to you. I think that we gloss over that once they get to to Ezra. It's almost like we don't really talk about the fact that she did the reverse Spock here and just gave everything away for the good of the one, right? So like I'm just like what let's talk about that for a minute. But there's seems to be no repercussions. They do talk about it for a second because they say Ahsoka says, I need to trust your judgments and you learn from these things and all that. I mean it was very Star-Lord trying to pull the gauntlet off of Thanos for me. Like I'm mad at Sabine because if she hadn't given the map, I mean, obviously she doesn't give the map, the story doesn't go through. But you just let the biggest baddie of all time.
I mean,
You just
the
gave
First
him a
Order
ticket
has
back.
to rise. They have to come somehow.
I guess so, but I want to rewrite time. I want to change Chef. I want to change Chef's recipe here, and I want to make sure that the bad things don't happen. But let's go and talk about a storyline that I'm a little bit confused about, Nick, because I feel like you wanted to touch on this, is Baylan and Shin and their storyline of who they are. I mean, we have some history for them, but they don't really identify as Sith, but they have Sith red sabers.
They're orange.
But they don't...
Orange.
But they... Oh, orange, excuse me. But they don't identify
orange,
as Jedi either, so...
Mm-hmm.
And then,
Something
of course,
more.
sadly, Ray Stevenson passed away, and so I don't know if they recast him as Baylan, because I feel like Baylan's got a big story to tell here, right?
Yeah, he does. There's a lot of untold story here, and that is my main issue with this 8-episode series. You had 8 episodes. I feel like you could have completed some more stories, right? Like, so we don't have an infinite amount of time necessarily, like, to tell all these stories. Like, I want them told, and I feel like it was dragged out a little too far. So, yes, there is that story to be told. I wish they elaborated a little bit more on Baylan's story because I don't know what's next, and I'm not confident with everything going on, and this takes us outside of the storytelling and everything, but in real life, like, I'm not confident in what Iger's doing with Disney Plus. I'm not confident in what their direction is and how much money they're going to put into these Disney Plus series and all this stuff, and I need this story completed, right? I want this. You set all this stuff up. You need to follow through on it. So I need some kind of commitment to you. And right now, we don't know if there's an Ahsoka season 2. We don't know what's coming. Maybe they'll merge it into Mandalorian and tell it there. There's supposed to be some Filoni-verse movie coming out with everything coming together. So do we have to wait for that? Like, I don't know. And I'm really intrigued because now you introduced Mortis and all that fun stuff in there, and I don't know how far we're going in there, but like, you introduced all this stuff and you had Baylan, and I knew it. Like, Baylan was like, there's something else there, and I was like, all right, what is this? Where are we pointing? because it had to be something Filoni, right? Like it had to be something crazy. Like so, it had to be the Bendu from Rebels. It had to be more of this. It had to be something. Like it had to be something big, and it and it was. I mean, the statue at the end. That's the father, and people don't know that. Look it up. I don't know where we're going. Here on Deep in the Plus, but like that is deep, right? Like that is deep in lore of Clone Wars. And so where are we going with this? If you're not going to pay that off, I am going to be pissed because
but
Balin knew this. Like that was the story, and there wasn't enough of like it was so mysterious. Like he was just this henchman, but you knew he was more, and you knew he had this ulterior motive. What was really cool is oh my goodness, what's her face?
Shin?
No, not Shin.
Morgan?
Oh my goodness. Yes, Morgan. She had her ulterior motive too, right? She was like, because at the end she was like for Dathomir. Like everybody had their personal motives, and we need to see that played out, right? So Balin was amazing. He was a scene stealer. He was an amazing actor. We need more of him. I have no idea what they're going to do. They have to continue that. I don't know if they bring him back in as a CGI character. I don't know if they recast him. I don't care, but we need to follow his path. Where is he going with this?
You know what? From a series standpoint, though, and you're right. Like Secret Invasion from Marvel moved the story not at all, and you wasted an entire story, right? I mean, I feel like yeah, like it moved the story not at all. Like, why did I watch this? I mean, it didn't move the story. So all of the MCU feels like it needs to move the story, and we've had so much of it, and feels like not enough, and then a lot of it's missed recently. But you're right, like. They almost did this as if they've got so much road they don't know what to do with it, right? Like so much road ahead of them, but maybe Disney Plus disappears or maybe something else happens and we don't get to find out what happened here. There was the Lemony Snicket movie. I don't know if you guys ever watched a series of unfortunate events. There was a TV series and there was books, but the movie, there was this whole thing about a spyglass that's not in the books. And I'm like, tell me what's going to happen with that spyglass. Nope. The movie didn't do well, so they didn't have a 2 and a 3. Okay, great. So now what? So the same thing though, but this is listed. You mentioned this. This is listed as a mini series, not a series. It was 8 episodes, and it also, as we've learned from Book of Boba Fett, which I still say is Mandalorian 2.5, because there's almost more Mandalorian in that one than there is in this. Is that what we're introducing new characters and we're starting all these storylines, and how are we going to wrap them all up? There's just not enough time. Desi, thoughts?
I feel like they are somehow going to. I agree with Nick that it felt more like Sabine was the main character than Ahsoka, and the fact that she is a Mandalorian Jedi, I feel like she and Grogu are going to team up somehow because they are the Mandalorian Jedi, and there's so few of them throughout history. I did feel like it kind of diminished Grogu a little bit, though, to have another Mandalorian Jedi. And I don't know if what?
I said, poor guy.
Yeah, maybe they just. I think Sabine is the main character here. It should have been called Sabine. It shouldn't have been called Ahsoka.
That interesting. Again, I think that I'm wondering if they sat down to tell the story of Ahsoka and then they started going, wait a minute, we can really tie in some stuff here, because the only thing about them being master and apprentice really happens in the final 8 seconds of Rebels. And so the fact that that's how this story continues is about that relationship with the two of them and this whole history that we don't know. Maybe we do a backwards flip again and do the Sabine spin-off, and there's more skeleton crew in that one. I don't know. It's just kind of crazy. Ron, how do you feel about the stories?
I don't know where it's going. I can see several different places. I think at least with the other series, we had some form of closure to each one. This feels like no closure at all to all the plot lines are left open, dangling like a cliffhanger where we don't, like the best of both worlds kind of thing, where we don't know what's going to happen. And, something like that was written because they didn't know if they were getting Patrick Stewart back for more Next Generation. So, something written like this, anything can happen. They could write off any of the characters in the off, because you could follow Sabine, Baylan, and Ahsoka just in the other galaxy for a whole season, while we have a whole season of another show where we're just following Ezra and Hera battling Thrawn. There's so much that could happen. They could do the 2 seasons that somehow converge after that. As you said, they've become a comic book where you have so many different series. It's like the X-Men of the 90s. There's so many things intertwined that you can't just follow one, and it's getting ridiculous.
Yeah, you need Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man, Web of Spider-Man, and Spectacular Spider-Man, and you put them all together and you get half a story, because they're going to tell the next one next month in a different way. It is kind of crazy and all over the place with all of that. But, again, I'm excited because, again, Nick, this was Star Wars to me. Like, this was so, like you said about C-3PO and seeing the X-Wings and just, and we've got Jason. Like, there's so much going on right now. It's an exciting time, but I'm with you that I'm like, wrap up something. For me, the end of this was disappointing. And I was talking to Neko about it, but to me, this was a disappointing ending. Because did you ever see How to Train Your Dragon 2? They go and they find the mom, and in finding the mom, they lose the dad. And it's like, that's kind of what we did here. Is we found Ezra and we sent him back, and Thrawn. And then we left Ahsoka and Baylan and all these people in a galaxy literally far, far away. So,
and it completely diminishes what Ezra did in the first place. He made the sacrifice to keep Thrawn away. And they saved Ezra, but they also did away with everything that he did to get Thrawn away from the main galaxy and stranded themselves in the process. But I mean, maybe we don't even see Ahsoka and Sabine again. Maybe they just train for the next 20 plus years and we don't see them again until after the sequels. And then that explains why they weren't there.
Can't you just catch the next whale back?
It's where they go to die. It's a one-way road.
Yeah, or the whale's going to go back after what happened.
I don't know. Nick, thoughts?
So, I think it depends on what they want to do with Mortis, right? Like, I think it kind of hinges on that, because there is a lot to say that, and again, this is going into a lot of crazy lore and stuff like that, but Mortis, you had a father, son, and daughter, and that was explained, kind of explained a lot in Clone Wars. That was still left a lot of mystery box there as well, but basically, it seems like potentially Hayden Christensen and Anakin could take the role as the father, could kind of come in there and kind of come into that Mortis role. I don't know what they're going to do there. If they play that out, that could be a bigger kind of overarching theme that could affect the galaxy, the universe, the balance of the Force, and all that fun stuff. But I don't know where they're going with that. I agree with you. It's just like a weird trade-off. So there has to be, I hope, again, I'm giving Filoni the benefit of the doubt that he has some kind of greater plan in place. I'm very confident in that, honestly. I am very confident in Filoni and his plan and his storytelling ability. I am not confident in Disney as a company giving us the avenue to, or giving the storytellers the avenue to tell us the stories, right? So that's where my concern lies. I have no problem with them laying this out and telling this story across multiple channels, movies, Disney Plus, different series. I have zero problem with that. But my real world brain comes in here and says, wait a second, there's all these issues with Disney Plus not making money and then potentially going back to doing movies and cutting TV series. And look, these streaming services are cutting series that are already produced and sitting there in the can, and they're saying no, it costs more money to put that out than just in the trash can. So that doesn't give me faith that these stories are going to be told and paid off. So when we leave on this cliffhanger, there's so much story to be told. There's so much great story to be told. And I'm totally fine with what they did if they pay it off. But I'm not confident they'll pay it off.
I have a solution for Galaxy's Edge, by the way, thinking about all this. Let's make the world between worlds like hub. And then you can go
It's a portal.
Anywhere you want.
I agree. 100%.
Go anywhere you want in the timeline and be able to experience things, and it makes sense. Because that, to me, is like the multiverse, these characters in live action. And then getting to see them in the parks is kind of awesome. And so it would be really neat to be able to see some of the others, but we're trying to keep the timeline clean, so we're not bringing back certain characters, and you got to have a Visa card and go to Star Wars Launch Bay to meet Darth Vader instead of, him walking around Batuu. I don't know. It's weird. So what's next? Like, again, actually, is there anything else about the series? Like, there was so much we could talk about, and it's only 8 episodes, and none of them are the same length. How magical was that? But they were all the right length, seemingly. They all kind of fit in, so I like the way they put them together. And when you watch this on Disney Plus, how many of you immediately went here so that you could do your shopping with the shopping tab? Did everybody go do that? Yeah, I figured. Yeah, we have no extras, but we have a shopping tab.
Of course.
Didn't even notice it.
It's new.
I have to say thank you, Hayden Christensen. He was amazing. He came back and he fulfilled that role to a great degree. Again, I go back and say that, like, if you have any doubts about Anakin Skywalker and his evolution in the prequels, go back and watch them. The way George Lucas wanted it to be told, like Hayden Christensen as like Anakin as a kid growing up into an adult, learning, becoming a leader. Just his evolution is told in Clone Wars, right? And so you get that connection between this little kid who you don't think can grow up to be Darth Vader, to this leader who's compassionate and a great leader and a great ally for the cause, for the rebel cause. And then, moving on to be Darth Vader. I think you see that evolution there. And to bring him to life in this Ahsoka series, because Ahsoka is tormented with this, because she knows what her master became. And to see her confront him, and that was very emotional, and that worked so well. And Hayden was great in that role. And I just thank him for coming back and playing that role. And I think everybody for writing this role, and amazing. That was one of the great. I seriously put that up there in the top 10 moments in Star Wars history. That was amazing for me. That him coming back, and that series where you saw. I heard it compared. I'm not going to steal credit for this, but I heard it compared to the Christmas Carol, like him taking her through. Like, by the way, Ahsoka, the young actress that played Ahsoka, who was also young Gamora. I learned that later on. She was young Gamora, and she was also in the Barbie movie. She was fantastic. And as young Ahsoka, that was so fantastic.
She was in the Barbie movie?
Evolution.
Okay.
She was, huh? Ahsoka was in the Barbie movie. She was she was the girl, the daughter of America Ferrera in the Barbie movie. Great actress, fantastic portrayal there. And that evolution through those different stages was mind-blowing. Loved it. All-time favorite Star Wars moment.
Well, and the flashing back and forth was so well done between his silhouette being Darth Vader and then, his silhouette being himself. Who would have thought that Hayden Christensen would get the most, screen time of anybody I mean, and I was thinking of you because I know you were a huge Clone Wars fan, Nick, of them recreating basically a scene from Clone Wars, like, you know,
Yeah.
them being in there, and how cool again that must have been for Dave Filoni as well. But then,
right, for him, I mean, give
yeah,
it up to Dave Filoni for recreating that in live action, right? Like, come on,
yeah.
that was beautiful.
Did you not have the same love for them returning him in Obi-Wan Kenobi?
No,
Like
I
Hayden
did,
Christensen coming back?
but I think this was pulled off better. I think this was pulled off more emotional and better. I yeah, I don't know. The more I watch the Obi-Wan series, the more I'm a little bit disappointed in that. It goes the opposite way, right? Like I actually was like my excitement level for Obi-Wan comes down every time I watched it, and my excitement level for Ahsoka goes up every time I watch it.
And yet that was almost more of a complete story because they
I
finished a
know
bunch of stuff.
they did
Okay. All right. Desi, do you need to
better
rant a little? Because
storytelling.
go ahead and rant a little.
I I thought Hayden Christensen did an amazing job in Obi-Wan as Darth Vader. When they did the flashbacks to him as Anakin, not as good. I think just because they didn't age him down enough, so he just looked like an old man playing a young 20-year-old. But I thought he did an awesome job in this, and it it really goes to show how much dialogue and director matters, because I think he actually is a good actor depending on how good of dialogue he's given and how well he's directed.
So let's bring Jake Lloyd, young Jake Lloyd, back and give him another shot.
That
Is what you're saying, Ron?
yeah, I was just gonna say, like, he always gets so much crap for what happened in basically mostly episode 2 more than even 3, but like Samuel Jackson and Natalie Portman were just as wooden in that, and they're phenomenal actors. So yes, it's obvious, he's not the problem.
Yeah. Okay, so we're running out of time here. I wanted to know, like, first of all, I just want to get from each of you what you think is next, because again, we're confused because this seemed like a Rebel season 5, not Ahsoka. Boba Fett seemed like more Mandalorian than it was Boba Fett. Like, I don't know what we're doing. Skeleton Crew seems like they're setting up Appa from Kim's Convenience to be the next show. I don't know. Carson seemed like, they've got him there, and there's rumor that he would be like, the flight leader, and that we would go off on there. And maybe that story will be about R2-D2. I don't know. I mean, because again, it doesn't really seem to matter what you call it along the way. But what's next, Nick? What do you think is next?
Well, I mean, as you obviously heard me rant, like I don't trust Disney at this moment to it's hard to predict, but I will say I don't think there's going to be an Ahsoka season 2. I really don't. I think these stories. I think this was to introduce this. I think this was to get us to Thrawn. I have a feeling they're doing a MCU type thing here where they're gonna potentially start telling more stories in Mandalorian, tie things together. By the way, kind of the one thing we didn't talk about, which I was always looking for, was when they were traveling with the space whales. I half expected a little cutscene to Grogu looking out his window, seeing the whales go by, right? Like, we saw that in Mandalorian. And I have a really good feeling that that was kind of tied together with what we were seeing here in Ahsoka. But when we had Mandalorian and they brought it, or excuse me, when they had Boba Fett, we had a whole episode dedicated to the Mandalorian. Everything in the Mandalorian was just part of the show. Everything's tied together, right? So the name, the name is weird. Like, it almost feel like, I think if they could do it over again, they just have like some kind of Star Wars anthology name and just run all these different stories, right? And I think that would make more sense. So I think they're bringing in all these stories. My gut feeling is there's no Ahsoka series 2. There's no Boba Fett or whatever. There's just more stories probably folded into Mandalorian, and then I think maybe we have another season of Mandalorian or something like that, and then it comes together in a culmination in a movie. Because I think putting it in the cinema and having a huge movie event with Thrawn, a big battle with Mandalorian, Boba Fett comes along, Ahsoka comes along, all the rebels come along. That movie will be epic, and I will pay 10 times to see that movie over and over and over again. So let's do it. I think that's where we're headed.
Ron, what's next?
I think I said what I see for these two is I see either a season split or a season or two different shows of one of what's going on with Hera and Ezra and Thrawn, and at least a half a season or so before they come back, they could be running them at the same time. They could be different shows of what's going on with Baylan and Ahsoka. So we're going to see I think we're going to see those two before they can converge at all. And I would really like to see something like that. Like, keep those stories separate.
Gotcha. Desi, what do you think's next? And don't say nubs. I don't want to hear about nubs.
He's from the High Republic era, so if they go back there, then maybe.
He is the acolyte.
I really want to know more about Baylan and Shin. Honestly, I'm more interested in them and what their story is than what's going on in the main story. I want to know what's going on. He said that Shin was being trained to be something more than a Jedi. They're not a Sith. They're not a Jedi. They're kind of like the Bendu, something in between. And she's got the little rat tail like she's a Jedi. Are they gray Jedi? Was he training her to be the replacement for the daughter? Because, we saw at the end there that the father and the son statues were still there, but the daughter was smashed. I'm very interested in what's going on with them. If I had to guess, what's actually going to happen is that they'll probably just forget about that whole storyline because Ray Stevens passed away, unfortunately, or it'll be a book or a comic and we won't see it again in live action, which makes me sad.
Well, and with Dave Filoni, you could go, back into animation, but it seems like now that we've moved into live action, we'd like to have it all be in live action. Anything before we get to final thoughts from you guys that I missed? Nick, I know that I probably missed 90% of what you wanted to talk about.
No, we're good. We touched on a lot of that stuff. I know you said it, and I don't know if we were buffering at the time or something, but I will say that David Tennant as Hu Yang was just absolutely phenomenal. Like I was rewatching the series, and every time he came on, I got chills. I mean, I loved him from everything he's done. I mean, I'm a huge Doctor fan and all that stuff. So, but him as a voice actor and Hu Yang, like, I want that droid with us for a long time. I really hope Hu Yang stays with us.
Well, he's been with us, 25,000 years, so I feel like...
he has.
Yeah.
Oh!
He taught nubs.
Okay. Everybody's thoughts on this, all right? When he started to tell the story to Ahsoka and said, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. I loved it because I will say that took me back to the original. This is a journal of the wills. This is a storytelling. We're hearing a story being told, and Hu Yang is just telling that story, right? Like, so I loved it. I know there's a lot of hate out there for it because it was too meta for people. What do you guys think?
I loved it. No, yeah, I mean, I'm too meta. Like, why would there be hate for that? That's like, it finally ties in something that has been an introduction for eons. People talking about this being this story happens, in a galaxy a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. I loved it. I don't get why you would hate it. Ron, do you hate it?
I loved it.
No, I don't hate. I'm still upset we don't get a crawl at the beginning of every series, every movie. I think
only the first 9, only those 9, the original 9. You don't get one for Solo.
I think that was so part of the style. Like, I don't think we needed every episode, but I think it should have occurred at the beginning of each series. Like, I think so, and every movie. I think that it just, to me, like, I still, like, now that they own Fox, I want the Fox fanfare back in front of the movies. To me, that's just part of getting me into Star Wars.
You're nostalgic for exactly the way you saw A New Hope the very first time. You want the marching sound from 20th Century Fox, and you want the crawl and the like the whole thing, right?
They put the fanfare on the soundtrack. Come on.
It's got, but yeah, it can only be for the full real theatrical movies. Although I don't know what makes Rogue One a Star Wars story, because it's basically in canon. So why did you? I think the original thing I heard about Rogue One, and you guys probably heard it too, was we're gonna make these stories and they don't all have to connect to the Skywalker saga. They don't, and so these will be something. It's a galaxy. There can be stories anywhere. And I think my guess would be that they started testing this thing and they're like, nobody likes that it doesn't have Darth Vader in it or whatever, and so they added the Darth Vader stuff back in later. And so I would have loved it had it been completely separate, but I guess Young Jedi Adventures is the only place we can tell the unconnected stories. Maybe.
I think Darth Edwards' cut of that movie, I think it would be interesting.
Yeah. I agree. All right. So I think I could talk to you guys all night about this, because I was beyond excited about this series. I bought this at Star Wars Celebration 2022, and have finally gotten a chance to like wear it, because I felt like it was like, nope, not gonna wear it until I actually watch a show. And so I've been excited about this one. We'll talk about what it means in general, but I want to give a shout out to our WIGS members. We love our WIGS, the WDWNT Interglobe Society. Thank you guys for being part of our family. If you want to know more about it, go to patreon.com/WDWNT to find out. Don't forget News Tonight tomorrow night with Mr. Nicholas Cicero. You're the star of that, right? I think.
Yeah. Of course.
Why would anybody else tune in? I mean, obviously. So that's tomorrow night, and then don't forget Sunday night. Desi will be there too, and then Sunday night we're back for Park Center. But also next Wednesday night we're going to be back in spooky mode. Last week on Deep in the Plus, Ron and I talked about Frankenweenie. And then next week, Allison and I will be talking about Behind the Attraction with the Haunted Mansion, and then the week after, we'll do a panel discussion about the Haunted Mansion movie, the new one that has just dropped. So do your homework, watch those things. Thank you guys for being with us on Deep in the Plus. But now I have to ask you guys, and here I have a caveat, because we know the Star Wars fans are going to watch this thing no matter what. I mean, I will watch everything. That's fine. Like, it doesn't really matter, even if it's I'm going to watch it. So. Would you recommend this? But would you recommend this? I'm going to start with Desi. We'll go backwards this time, work our way around. Would you recommend this to someone who is not a hardcore Star Wars fan? Like, do you believe enough in this series to say that you would recommend it? So, Desi, would you recommend this series?
Oh, gosh. I mean, I would say yes if you're a Star Wars fan. If you're not a Star Wars fan, then you probably haven't seen all the rest of it, then why would you? If you're a somewhat Star Wars fan, you don't watch any of the animated series. I didn't have to watch Rebels to still enjoy it. So if you are at all a Star Wars fan, I would say, and you watch The Mandalorian and you plan on watching the movie that's going to tie it all together, then yes, I would say I think that you should watch it. If all you're interested is the 9 theatrical episodic Skywalker saga movies, then maybe not, except that Anakin shows up. But if you like Star Wars at all, I would say yes.
Okay. Ron?
Yeah, that is a hard one. I think it was a great series. I really enjoyed it. But am I going to recommend it to a non-fan? I'm going to say no, because we don't get closure. And I don't want to, someone who doesn't know where we're coming from to also not know, like, be questioning where we're going. I think if it had given us more of an ending, yes, but I think this, you have to have at least some knowledge of these characters to enjoy this show. Not, and I don't mean just like the 9 movies. I think you have to know at least a little bit about Rebels or the expanded universe stuff to get what this show was.
Gotcha. And Nick?
100% no. If you're not a Star Wars fan, not even a question. There's too much loose threads. There's too many characters that not only do you get more enjoyment if you know all the stuff, but you're lost. You really are. And Ron made a great point. You're left with too many cliffhangers where now you're going to have to keep watching it, and I have no idea what's next. It's not like it's going to be an Ahsoka Series 2 for sure that's going to pick up on the threads and end it. It's going to go off in different tree branches. So 100% no.
Yeah,
stay away. Don't get involved. If you haven't been involved with it by now, stay out. Stay away. Warning.
What if I've watched 3 Star Trek movies? Should I watch this series? No, I mean, I feel like that should be a legitimate question because Star Wars apparently is very polarizing. That, you know, we've got this Disney Plus, and what's keeping it afloat seems to be the Marvel and the Star Wars. But if you're not making something that appeals to everyone, are you missing out? Because we're going really deep for the fans, which is great. We love that. We love that you're going deep for the fans. But when you're not a huge fan, I always wonder, like, would you have even bothered clicking on this one? And then, you know, Ron, the comic book thing you talked about earlier, like, you've got to start somewhere in the series, right? You've got to jump in somewhere and something brings you in. And I really think for most people that are new fans, it's probably Mandalorian, because Mandalorian was like the hot thing and you didn't necessarily need to have all of the history. And yet if you had the history, it applied to you, and that was great. So I feel like you're kind of missing the mark if you're not making it a jump off point that everybody can jump into. But as a Star Wars fan, this was, I think, my favorite season of TV since The Mandalorian. Honestly,
let me say real.
I
want to say, like, so I think here's the conundrum we're in as a in the real world. Again, I think streaming services are the perfect place to put very niche stuff like this that's going to appeal to everybody who it's going to pay off if you read the comics, played the video games, watched the books, watched the animated series, watched all the movies. However, I think the big corporations are realizing the business model doesn't really necessarily work that great. So they have to figure that out. But in a vacuum, this is a great place for this stuff, and it really doesn't matter, and they should keep pumping it out. To the shareholders, though, I don't know if it's sustainable. That's the problem.
Yeah. Well, again, I mean, I love that they do the niche stuff and that they have the bandwidth to do it when they do it right. I mean, there is stuff that they could do very wrong, Lady and the Tramp live action. You know, so there's some things that I think that they do a good job of, and there's some that they do wrong. And, you know, I thought Willow was going to be a new thing, and one season and it was done. You know, bringing in a whole new.
Did you like Willow? Sorry. Did you?
Not really.
I would. No.
But I'm saying when I heard it was coming, I was like, okay, now you're taking, you know, you're getting in here and you're finding some other Lucasfilm IP that you own that you might as well take advantage of, like Indiana Jones. But again, they seem to be missing the mark on that one. So, I don't know. I would love to see more of this kind of stuff, but it also, Percy Jackson, I'm a huge fan. I can't wait to see what they do because Rick Riordan is overseeing it, like Dave Filoni was overseeing this. So I think that will actually be a good series. They just need to give it a chance after that, because what happens if they don't go into the next book? You know, you're kind of stuck there. So I hope that this continues on. I'm glad to see more Rebels too, by the way, because that was my favorite. I loved that series. And so the fact that came, you know, into live action, I thought was pretty cool. So, but let us know what you guys think. Thank you guys for being in the chat tonight. We appreciate it. I see a bunch of people, Dawn and Goofy Guy and Ronald and Ron Deanna has been in the chat like crazy. I don't know that dude. and Katie, and I saw Rosita in there, and Jay Ware, and so thank you guys so much for being with us. We appreciate you. Have a great week. Let us know if you in the comments below all the things you feel like we got wrong, and your opinions. We would love to hear them. So have a great one, and we'll see you next time. Bye.